out of it now. And then, Copilot takes on all of the other heavy lifting, which is great.
Right. Danny and I have talked about it. The solutions is the easiest bit for us, but maybe the hardest bit for AI, because the I guess the IP, the knowledge that we have on these tech providers, how they operate, the nuances of their systems and everything
100%.
like that. It's just too difficult for these systems they just don't have that knowledge, and it's not easy for us to impart that knowledge on them. Yeah. So that kind of piece is where we step in and have to sort of do, I guess, the most amount of grunt work. But yeah, to Danny's point, for us, they're also one of the easiest bits, because, as you know, just having done this long enough, you can figure out pretty early on in the piece what bits of tech you're going to win for them and what bits aren't. And then it's about building the story and justifying it.
I think the other thing, I've been doing all the due diligence on the providers and uploading that into consulting into one of the libraries there. And I tested this theory the other day in ChatGPT. I said, these are the problems that need to be solved in this business. I kind of knew what I wanted. I had in my mind what the solution was going to be, but I wanted to see what ChatGPT would spit back. So I gave it the DD on Xplan, and in those due diligence documents, it's got the functionality, the pain points it can address, the downsides of it, all those sort of things.
Yep.
So I uploaded Work Sorted, Xplan, My Prosperity, Plutosoft, a couple of others, and it came up with the solution that I had in my head, which was Xplan, Work Sorted, and My Prosperity. So it was in line with the thinking. It wasn't like wildly going, Plutosoft and Fin365, or, it was giving actual pretty good. But then obviously that relies on what is sitting in those documents. So it's all about the structure. It's all about
the
what you're
content
giving
we
it.
provide.
Yeah.
Because if it just went to the websites,
that's right.
It'd say all these things are great.
Yeah,
that's right. And we use our jobs to be done framework in the due diligence documents. And we say Plutosoft can address all of these things. And also I've been doing some research using Gemini. So Google Gemini, I don't know about you guys, but it does the best research. I'm finding the deep research on Gemini is awesome.
The papers are amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. So I'll say go and do due diligence on Xplan. This is for a financial planning advice firm located in Australia. Blah, blah, give it the good prompt. So I add that to the framework as well. So it's got all this deep research that it's gone out and found, but then all of our research as well. So yeah, and it's been pretty good.
Awesome.
I started
I think with so just a point there, I don't know how far progressed you guys are with using the AI to generate report outputs, like stuff to start your first draft of reports. Like I think, personally, that's something I've been playing around with a little bit, with like prompt chains to generate parts of documents. Yeah, because one prompt alone won't generate the whole document for you. And from what I can tell online, looking at people who are using it to write non-fiction books and bits and pieces, or starting to think about how AI can write non-fiction books, they're prompt chaining in a sequence, and they're starting from an outline, and so they're using two or three iterations of a prompt. So for the first part, Daniel, your point is jobs to be done, buyer awareness, like all this pre-context first as the first prompt, and then they move on to a next stage, which is then outline. And they have sort of three iterations of the outline. So it sort of starts at a high level outline, referencing jobs to be done, referencing pain points and that sort of thing. 3 iterations of that. And then they sequence through a couple of prompts for each of the sections identified on the outline. And the results are pretty cool. And so I wonder if there's something we can do there, because to your point, Danny, like you've got the transcripts and you've got your recommendations. I wonder if you can work backwards from that and go, now help me prepare a report with this style of outline, with the pre-context around jobs to be done and all that sort of stuff. But here's introduction, here's the current state, here's the future state, but working backwards from the evidence and the transcripts you've got.
Exactly.
I wonder how good that would be. And I, to be honest, I reckon we could build some pre-built, loops, some sequences of prompts that would do that really well, I reckon.
Yeah, I think from what I've tried with Copilot in Word, it's pretty good at doing that with the transcript, so we can get what we need pretty well out of Copilot. It's a little bit faulty, but it's like we would tell an advisor to do, right? When they're using it for file noting, you're going to have to check it and everything. But yeah, certainly the context, giving it the context is really good. But yeah, I think so.
The other thing, Pete, I found.
I'll go for it, Aaron.
The other thing, those slide works templates that we get, mate. Big ones, right? They're really good. Like the other day, I took one of the slides in the SlideWorks template, think about entirety, Pete. So I just took the standard template, screenshot of that, banged it into ChatGPT, and said, here is my ideas on such and such and such project. Translate that into this slide. Did a pretty good job. not the
Yeah.
visual, because the visual still looks like arse, right?
Yeah.
Does a
You've
really
gotta
good
fix.
job of
Yeah.
building, does a really good job of like all the discovery and the background work to then go, well, that's what that slide should be.
Yeah.
And so I reckon that's a way to think about it, because we've got a reasonably standardized deck now for this stuff and the way we deliver. I think we can
Yeah.
improve it with some new stuff coming in, but it's just like take that data and give me something that's really compelling. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
No, that's all right. It's been a big learning going through the Prime project. So to your point, Aaron, you know, I'd used Copilot to get summaries of meetings and pain points and all of those sorts of things. And once it's in summary form, because it's anonymized and there's no PII in it, I've been taking that into GPT and creating a project and going, right, this is my Prime project. Here's all the transcript or the summaries of those transcripts in here. Here's other information. And I've just been doing a series of prompts and just using that project to go, right, well, okay, let's do the Salesforce versus Dynamics comparison. Give me pros and cons in the context of this business and all the things that you already know. So I'm using it to sort of generate content for those slides. But Pete, I'm curious how you got to sort of, for the executive summary, that story, right? Because that was fantastic. And I think it turned out to be quite compelling to sort of present in that format. But that was a sort of a great, I mean, I know you're very smart, but I'm sure you used a bit of AI on that one too.
I'm just a really good marketer.
Incredibly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I think that's to Aaron's point. Yeah, with some raw based context that we can pump into a project and then say, right, you know, now I want you to create the narrative, the story that then forms our presentation. And then, okay, great. Well, there's going to be a page on this. We'll now go off and build the content for that, because I need pros and cons of this. I need the buy versus sell argument on this, you know, all of the things that ended up being incorporated. And I did do, I have been doing a lot of that work manually, because again, there's some nuance there and it's a bit of a learning curve. But I think for the next project like that, knowing all the stuff that I've done today, that's exactly the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to spend a lot of time sort of building out that first prompt to go, okay, here's the guts. Now help build the backstory. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So how I've sort of thought about this a lot is sort of how I use AI, because obviously I'm more in a sales marketing context, but I think even all the good content you guys are doing in your projects, like none of it matters if we can't convince the client that this is worth doing. So 100%. I think that's the superpower for me. So just a couple of things. So with Claude, I do have projects set up. So I have a communication project. Now, I really like putting the odd, I don't take stuff out of here directly. Out of battery power, plugging my laptop. So I like to sort of drop in various bits of content that I'm doing and put it in this sort of thing. And, so I've taken I put a massive prompt in here, which effectively uses some communication lessons from people who I think have been really good communicators. So I've got like a Steve Jobs one here, frankly, because that message of simplicity, I think, is just a no-brainer to focus on. And there's another guy called Bill McDermott, who's the CEO of a company called ServiceNow. He's quite an odd-looking cat, but he talks. He's from Brooklyn. He's he's a street brawler kind of, but now he's running this massive company, and he talks with such clarity and the way he writes. And I just go, wow, that's amazing. And so what I've actually done is sort of built a prompt which sort of forces my writing to be critiqued under that model. So I have to share this with you guys. And so it's got things here, short, direct sentences, no jargon, bold statements that sparks curiosity, a metaphor, so and I've put a sample output, and I've also given it some sources and things to sort of refer to. So I'll often, so here's sort of a potential, like an email I was going to send to a client, and it was just a bit dry. So I thought, I'll put it in this prompt and see what it comes back with. And it just gives me a bit sort of more, sort of ideas on how to frame things. I did a video the other day on Mr. Beast, so it just gave me a bit of a story to simplify my words. I don't take all these verbatim. I tend to read it, edit it, and then go, okay, that looks and feels a bit more like me. And what you can do with these projects is you can actually, I've started to do this, is you can actually upload some of your own real communication. So I think what works quite well is if you say, hey, you gave me this is actually what I end up using which is a tweak. And so I can sort of start to learn a little bit about, because some of this stuff, it'll look quite extreme. When it comes out, it'll be like, oh, you're not Steve Jobs, mate, like sell down, but I think if it's a nice way to sort of, and what I'm finding particularly useful, if you have the time, is you can tailor the message to the audience. So if I know I'm communicating to a high detail person, then I'll mention that, or a high level person, all the rest of it. So there's sort of things we do. Another one I've sort of been using for our LinkedIn stuff that we do and things like that is a Finura brand voice, which I've also put into Canva as well. So Nicole has a bit of that. So there's a few sort of, there's a Gallo method of communication. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but it's sort of what, it's actually what Amazon enforces in their business. Everyone's writing business plans. They're going to use the Gallo method. So I won't bore you with that, but it's a very structured way of sort of storytelling. And so that actually forces any sort of communications that we have to sort of have these three core pillars: simplicity, memorability, and persuasiveness. So, and everything's in 3 points, 3 points max on everything we do. So that's been quite helpful as well, just for more generic Finura communications. And so whenever I'm writing on behalf of the company, I'll use that one.
Claude over GPT, is there a...
It's just so much better at writing. I think it's so much better. That's just the preference. I do use GPT for other stuff, but I think this is great for this. And the other one, I've just got a little Finura board of advisors. So when I don't want to bother Aaron and I've got a business issue I'm trying to deal with, a business quandary, I've just got set up this little board of advisors here, which sort of talks about, it's got like Reid Hoffman on here and Bill Campbell and Scott Galloway and Jim Collins, Mark Andreessen. So it just sort of comes out with 4 or 5 different perspectives that I haven't thought about. And it's actually been quite useful on that for me. If I don't want to bother Aaron late at night about something. So that's the Claude one.
Oh, there are a lot of prompts in there, Aaron. Looks like he doesn't want to bother you.
I'm surprised you don't have Aaron's satchel.
He doesn't have enough online presence, unfortunately, so can't copy him. I'm going to create one for my wife, though, actually.
This one's quite good too if you're struggling with a prompt. So this master prompt, use this in ChatGPT 01 or 03 or Gemini. And it actually, I'll show you how I use this. It actually, you drop it in and it actually forces you to write the prompt properly. So I'll give you an example. Sorry, what have I done here? So if I go to, where's this one here? Where do I use it? Prompt design. So I dropped that prompt in here. This is the prompt generator prompt. So you can sort of see how big it is. And if you use Claude, which is much better now because the new version of Claude actually sort of breaks things down a lot more, it sort of asks you questions to define the prompt. So it says here, what topical role, share any details. And then I sort of said, this is my thing. And I said, I understand this is what you want to do. You want to be a business analyst doing a Salesforce to 365 migration. You should say, put rocks in your head while you're doing that. Anyway. And then it asks me questions like, what are the Australian specifics? What's the migration scope? Who are the stakeholders, deliverables? And then so I prompted it here. And then it sort of gave me this quite major prompt here now to use moving forward, which can be useful with AI. So I think that prompt generator is pretty cool.
Awesome.
So I'll drop that in our Slack channel so you can use that if you need to. The other thing for the research side of things, so I'm totally with Danny. I think Gemini is so good at this. So I actually I was just doing some mucking around for a presentation. And so I asked Gemini to just do some up-to-date research on the key advice tech wealth players. So did Hub, NetWealth, Iris, Bravura, and Telefy. And it sort of actually wrote this paper. I didn't agree with all of it, but of all the trends. But what I thought was particularly great was it really nailed the strategies of these businesses. So it said 24, acquisition field ecosystem expansion. I think that's what they're doing. NetWealth, organic growth and strategic integrations. That's exactly what they're doing. Iris, dominant advice tech integrator. I think that's a dominant, definitely. Bravura, digital advice. Spoke about Aaron. That's their core strategy. And Teleflow, open architecture advocate for advice.
Yeah.
Just 100% true.
Yeah.
And then it did these really good tables of key examples. It actually gave examples like the Zeppo stuff, the Infinity, iProsperity.
It is so good.
Recent integration with Paradino, Advice OS, like really useful stuff. And then I took it another step and I thought, can you give me a like a dependencies, because I'd like to do more stuff with clients that's less static and more multimodal. And so it actually built me this little sort of little web page. So it actually, I can click on it, takes me through all the different aspects, takes me through the different players. I can click on Hub24, Net Wealth, or Teleflow, and it can, generate partnership ideas. I asked it to do that. Click on this, and it gives me a idea of how to partner with them. Talks about integrations and charts here. I mean, I just think this stuff could really change the way we present ideas to clients, like send them a private HTML like we do with Advice Designer, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking guys like, our CEO friend from our big client, Simon, like he would love this probably more than a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
The other idea I had, Danny, was I'd love to be able to figure out a way to get a private or a safe version of that podcast generator. Like, why wouldn't we just send our recommendation reports to the podcast? So listen to it privately if they wanted to. Say, hey, mate, I know you're really busy. Can you just listen to this for 15 minutes on your walk this morning? It'll tell you everything you need to know about our recommendations.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing.
So it's possible. We can do it. So I really love that. So that's
They got an Aussie accent in there yet, though?
Doesn't.
I think they've just got the two. As far as I'm aware, they've still just got the two. The guy and the girl, I think.
But it's not painful though, Danny, is it?
No,
you can listen to them.
I am blown away. I did one. I showed Zara. I did one for Zara on something that she was doing at school, and Grace on vet research, and she was like, "That's just like bang on." It was a podcast that she listened to about what she does.
And they joke around, they laugh. There's, flang in there. It's fantastic. So good.
And so the other one I do want to show you is what we did for that investment management client, who I won't mention their name because this has been recorded, but I'll just want to show you a bit about what we did. And Casper, this is going to interest you, I hope, around what we did. So as you guys know, we had a managed account provider come to us who has to generate quarterly investment reporting for all their portfolios, about 400 portfolios they have to do every quarter. So I think the time, Janie, was it 70 or 80 hours they were spending per quarter, maybe more, 100 hours, something stupid in number of hours. And whilst it's a valuable thing they do, like they are important, it's a hamster wheel, right? You got to do them every quarter. So by the time they get them out, it's a bit like SOAs. If they're 6 weeks late, people have forgotten. It's old data. So there's sort of two goals. One was to sort of streamline that, make it faster, obviously make it more timely, and then ideally just automate as much as possible. So we learn a lot through the projects of how to do it. And we started with a few iterations. So we started just with generic AI. We tried a couple of tools like Cassidy and Workflow, but the critical element we found with the AI LLMs was they basically break. The more workflow you put into them, they just start breaking because the batching. So you need to batch if you're doing large amounts of data. So where we ended up was we put together.
I think just the this particular use case needed. They had multiple portfolios for multiple clients with multiple different structures, investment structures. So there was a lot of sort of complexity, and that's where the AI, like Cassidy, kind of broke when it was trying to put together that dynamic.
And so, like the outcome, the deliverable, the result was really just three or four paragraphs of text, basically. But the key things were all the funds are different. The performance is different every quarter. And so they have they want to sort of basically focus on a couple of the funds that were either good contributors or detractors to relative performance and a bit of asset class commentary. And it was just sort of Aussie shares, international shares, and then property infrastructure was sort of the main things. And so what we found through the process was obviously just trying to structure the data was actually the critical element. Surprise, surprise. And so we ended up using Airtable for it. And the reason why Airtable been getting to play with a little bit, I think it's a really good tool. It's just it's really good at that, but also it also has some sort of, I guess, out of the box sort of integration capability that we can actually run scripts and different things behind the scenes that suited this much more than you just couldn't do this stuff with Excel. Is the reality on this sort of thing. So ignore the make bit. We didn't use that. But effectively the flow was we get all the data into Airtable. We then send some prompts off to Claude, and then we obviously use some JavaScript to sort of structure the data correctly before it goes to Claude. That was an important element thing. Generates the commentary. And then we also have built in a quality control loop, because I just think with any of these AI projects for now, we're not going to go, I don't think we should be going agentic on certain things like this, where data accuracy is 100% most critical element. But I think we'll get there, Aaron. Like, I think eventually that will probably be the next iteration for this, if they want to spend more money, which I think they do, to nail this. But I see so many use cases for something like this, we can, nail it. So I'll take you through how we did it. But effectively, what we basically had to do was get all the asset class performance together. We had fund data. So there was about 400 managed funds, I think they use, or 250 managed funds. So obviously there's the 3-month performance and some commentary about that. And then we had the 400 different portfolios, which all have the different weightings and everything of each fund. So we put it into an Airtable structure. We then used developed some JavaScript code, which was just really designed to structure the data correctly for each individual prompt to go to Claude. So effectively how the prompt worked is that we only generate one, we just do it one at a time. I think we will be able to batch more in the future, but it just made it a lot more reliable. And so effectively it structures all that data, sends a prompt off to Claude via the API, and then actually gives you then back a commentary. So I'll just quickly show you. Does that all make sense, what I've just said? Any questions on that? So basically the data sources. So we basically had to build a front-end generator, which sort of does the work for the user. We had all the holdings, manager commentary, so all the funds and the different commentary, asset class specific information. And so effectively the workflow is user ticks a box, basically it sends off some script and a Claude API, and it'll come back with a, hopefully if the API is working today, there it is. And so then it comes back here. I don't know if you can see my screen. Why is that not working? Sorry, shit. Too much. So that prompt just came back. So see, it's now generated a draft of what that return is. And then effectively we just review it, either passes or fails. If it passes, it'll just get dropped over as an approved portfolio thing. And the feedback loop that we built was we used ChatGPT to actually assess the accuracy. And so you can see here we went through a few iterations. So I was sort of using this as a testing thing all around. And sort of where we landed was we got this sort of final position where we had, 100% accuracy, some commentary on the tone and how it all came out, and sort of recommended a few tweaks. So that was actually helping develop the prompt, and it gave some scoring. And the critical thing was obviously data accuracy. And then we looked at tone, narrative flow, and those sort of aspects as well. So effectively the client can still use this and actually check as they go. So they can get, obviously once they've done this the third or fourth time, it should get more comfortable. In terms of how the automations work, so behind the scenes, so with Airtable, you can obviously build a lot of automations behind it. So something that I think be Casper for good one for you to play around with at some point, mate. But effectively, it allows us to send records from Airtable direct to Claude. So we set up a Claude API for them. And so you can see the prompt here that goes, there's JavaScript. So it's a JavaScript code, but actually which sends a call up to the Claude API. So the actual, most of it is code. So the only thing that actually goes to Claude is here. So the Claude part is pretty limited. So we just give them the example or structure to follow. And critically, what not to do was a big focus on this. So do not do this, do not do that as well. And that's sort of how we get our prompt back. So you can sort of see how in our world, you could use this for a lot of stuff, I reckon, for unstructured data. Structure it correctly, and then so rather than using ChatGPT or as Claude as the interface to do this stuff, I reckon you'd almost be better off using the API in future for these things.
Does Airtasker allow for queuing? Because I mean, you're at the moment manually triggering this, right? But you could just queue it all if it allows for like a time queuing process.
Yeah.
Because you're getting data back, and when you get the data back, you could just be like, okay, now run the next prompt.
Yeah, I think for now, because this is just a testing situation, it was just do it one by one, but you could absolutely do it that way. I think in future, build it out a bit more. Yeah. To be honest, the heavy lifting was just getting the data structured correctly for this and playing around with it. I think we tried about 100 different prompts as well to get it structured correctly. So key lesson is anyone that thinks they can do this shit for an SOA clearly hasn't tried. Because if that's what it's to get three paragraphs of text,
Nonsense.
then what fucking hope have you got for an SOA at this point?
There is a couple of things that I see there that would be really interesting to even embed into our advice process. Like, take the asset allocation commentary as an example. Because we've already got that information on screen, you could almost like give it run an output telling me what's the difference between where the client's assets are and where they'll be, and if there's any difference between that, which is over or under 10%.
Yeah.
So you could actually create like automated prompting tools that would be embedded straight into Advice Designer to do things like that. Which is like, you think about it, like it just spits out a result and you go, okay, cool, that looks good, and just keep on moving on.
Yeah.
Better yet, we use Amazon Q, which is the LLM that sits underneath Amazon, and we just build some prompts. They sit inside the rich text editor, and it's like, write this for me. And we combine client data that's already sitting in the data model, the strategy library that sits there as well, and it writes that for us, right? But we build a prompt behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. And like, you could even, I mean, you could do that for the strategy content, actually create strategy content components. I was thinking you might go
exec summary things. Yeah, you could use data from WellSolver to write compelling product summaries and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I'm noticing quite a few tools have obviously the rich text editors that are open source you can buy. I've got the little OpenAI thing now, but that's just a generic prompt window. It doesn't really do anything, does it?
No,
like we can implement that tomorrow if we wanted to, but it's not.
Gemini apparently natively has it can be turned on inside of our rich text editor at the moment. From what I understand, there's like a Gemini.
It requires the user to authenticate themselves using their logins to their Gemini account. So it pushes it out to their Gemini account.
Yeah, so that would just be taking content and just rewriting it. But what we'd be wanting to do is probably actually have them already inside of it and say, here is the content. It's already on screen. Because I was just trying this with screenshots. Sorry, while we were on the phone, it's like you can take a screenshot and go, okay, tell me something about this with these outcomes, right, and run that in the background.
Because the issue is, if we just enable Gemini or some of the little tools in the rich text editor, we're passing data out of the platform, data leakage. So PII is being passed out, and we're just sending that to an open LLM somewhere.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to do that. We can't do that.
Some of these other tools must be doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's good, even just to have a story on that, I think, because we keep getting asked about
100%.
And
because we couldn't pass it out. Like if we were doing that, we'd breach our ISO requirements. We'd be sending stuff to the US. Like we would block it. They go, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah, the things that we would need to probably think about is like actually actively creating automated prompts inside, right? So we've actually written the prompt
100%.
and they just go, yeah, I want to run this prompt or whatever.
Chain the prompts. Because the best apps are chaining prompts in the background. They're saying, look at this data source, do this, jobs to be done, do this, and then write it like this. Like, so if you're going to write like a compelling scope of advice or introduction for an SOA, right? Same thing we were talking about earlier, Danny. We go, for someone who is aged this at 56, their income is this, they live in this demographic, like you'd pass in all that demographic information, you get it to do some psychometric sort of stuff over the top of it, right? As early prompts. And then you say, and now write me something. Right? Like it's probably 3 prompts to get that outcome. But I reckon the prompts is the hard part. Implementation of it on the front end, super easy.
The interesting, I think that like there's probably 2 levels to it. Coming back to, I think that there's probably still some user intervention, this whole, validating this. So that's the bit where like you'd still be doing the stuff inside, you'd be seeing it generated inside of AD. But the user would be like choosing or interacting a little bit with it, but the actual prompts are running in the background, automating and pulling the data together. That and kind of like where you could really get some
benefits. Something else to think about, guys. So I've been using this thing called Prompt Hub just personally because like tracking prompts and managing prompts between the different AI tools is diabolical. And just being able to like quick action a prompt when you're doing something on a website or something like that, right? So Prompt Hub is the name of it. I wonder if we get our own account, guys, just for work, and because they've got a team account, and you can literally like, structure your prompts, share your prompts. You can even run efficiency scores over them for the different LLMs to refine them. And then you can effectively just like trigger prompts from Prompt Hub to whichever LLM you're working on.
Yeah, I reckon that would be awesome.
And you can chain in there. So like to your Airtable solution before, Pete, where you are like building out the code in bits and pieces, you can effectively just build a visual workflow that says prompt in this order and pass these variables between the prompts, and you can action that straight to an LLM.
Right. Jesus.
So it's just like a prompt management tool that sits on the side and versions and does all sorts of cool stuff. Let me do a bit of research and maybe we get an account, guys, and we can just start.
How are you using it? Is it just an extension in Chrome or something, or?
It's just in browser, and then you just link your accounts up, so you can go action, and it shoots off opens a new window to ChatGPT. Some of them do have extensions. I've got another one that's got an extension in browser. They're a bit sketchy, if I'm honest with you. I think everyone's spinning up these browser extensions, and my ISO brain's like, what the fuck? Like, you guys are like, farming my computer for data. I'm a little bit tin hat on it all, but I'm sure there will be a good one that is an extension soon enough, though. Sorry, Pete, you go, mate.
I noticed you blocked out. We can't put extensions on anyway, Aaron. So got a few on there. I've got to go to Thingo every time anyway.
I've got an extension request.
The last one, I just want to talk to you guys about the model context protocols. So is everyone sort of across what they are?
No.
So model context protocols are basically like APIs for LLMs. And so they've been out for about 6 months now, but it's now becoming quite open source and accessible. And so Claude recently turned on a whole bunch. So the basic call integrations. So I've sort of connected my personal Gmail. I'm happy to do that. So it's now got my Google Drive, my Gmail, my calendars. But they've also built now a Zapier one. So the Zapier one came out last week. And so you can now go into Zapier and basically connect. Claude can be your front end, and it can effectively talk to anything with a Zapier integration, which is pretty amazing. So just a simple example, I just put this here. So can you add a reminder to me to call Aaron 9 a.m. Sunday morning? So I just put my Google, my tasks thing in here, and it will now basically go into my Microsoft tasks as a to-do. And the way it works is it'll actually drop it in, and it sort of just knows to go into the system and actually how to do it. It's still a bit slow because it's, it's still beta effectively. But it's actually dropped into my to-do list. And so if I just share. Call Aaron Sunday morning. It's there. So I've just got this view that in time, people are already doing it. Like they're getting Claude or ChatGPT to do tasks. It's sort of agents. And so I think Claude already has HubSpot connected as a proper integration. So Claude users can now connect to their HubSpot account, Danny, and query and do tasks and all sorts of stuff inside HubSpot. Only a matter of time and actually Zoho you can do through Zapier, obviously. So it's just really interesting space because you just get the sense that because clearly people love using these prompts, like love using these interfaces because it's so simple, like Google. Yeah. I mean, I kind of love the fact that if I had a Claude, like Gemini on my phone that I talk to, I can send it a reminder and it'll add the task to whatever task thing I use. So you can so this has all sorts of implications, I think, for interfaces. I think it's a real competitor to Copilot personally on that because effectively, ChatGPT is doing the same thing right now as well.
I guess I'm a bit tinfoil hat on some of this stuff too, like Aaron.
You're scared. I 100% love the functionality.
Yeah.
It scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, sure.
I agree.
But I'm sharing this because other people are going to start using this stuff.
100% they are, yeah. But from an organizational data perspective,
that's what I guess that's what. How do you even how do you manage all of these integrate? Because
DLP.
so Zapier's got 2,000 integrations or whatever. It's got
I
a
think the number was.
sorry,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
8,000 apps. How do you control who's saying what apps you can connect to? And I don't know, I get a little bit.
To think, I know, hard, but think of this in like in you know, like you were there for a little while, Simon, when you were at the Advice Rev guys, and then Elementor. Like this is an iPaaS platform. Like Pete, you're building an iPaaS, mate, a personal iPaaS platform.
Yeah.
And it's fucking confusing, mate. Like you got to like think about like mapping out all the workflows and which data gets shared to where, right?
Yeah, I know.
Like, so I think some people really optimize it and do an amazing job of it. I reckon a lot of people are going to set it up. They won't maintain it. It'll start sending data to like like endless opportunities. Well, there's the oyster sort of stuff, but it's like for organization.
I'm showing you. The problem we're going to have is going to be a lot of people out there doing this shit, particularly in small businesses that we have to get on top of and understand what is actually happening here.
Thought leadership. So early thought leadership and like moderation on how to do this stuff responsibly and well.
It's that like I'm finding it's that
Has to be.
balance between we're obviously technology consultants, we need to be very forward thinking, but there is that balance there. Again, I always go back to, and I'm questioning myself, am I just sounding backwards here? I'll put it to the group, but we're still in financial advice. What problems are we trying to solve? They're all pretty, a lot of them can be solved through the existing tech we're using, and then we go and enhance using AI and in a safe way. Yeah, I'm with Aaron. I think it's just the world is your smorgasbord 100%, but it does worry me that all of these integrations are, we're probably not using AI overly. I don't know. We don't have any guardrails in place that I'm aware of.
And you have to remember, every time you hand data off to another app and then to another app, it's like, where is that data being stored?
Do we know anything about
we're using Zapier. We're using, I'm using Zapier. It's like, where is Zapier storing their subset of data that they're pulling out of whatever system you've asked it to pull out of?
And the app that you're connecting
you're opening yourself up for like, especially when it comes to like personal, personal data. You're gonna open yourself up to like getting hacked or like data slippage or data leakage. It's going to be more prevalent now.
And the way I think about it, guys, though, is like automate the out of your business and your business processes, but anything that touches PII, be particularly sensitive towards, right? So I think like front-facing marketing, like you're on the schedule booking stuff, Danny, but I just think, like Pete, I worry for Nicole, mate, like in her business as a model, right? Because I sort of look at the integrations and all the prompting and the bits and pieces. Like you can build a closed loop marketing system, quite frankly, using the voice of the customer stuff that you've got and the integrations and plug that into a social marketing campaign, generate some images. You could almost have a completely automated social media strategy, nearly punching content out. And you've got to have a person in the middle checking that content, right? But it's like,
Hey guys, I'm gonna drop off.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the advice and stuff. Thank you guys.
All right.
It's amazing.
Right.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.